So, a little over a year ago, I made a TikTok video about how capitalism is a religion. And this was my first TikTok video, and it went kind of viral. In the intervening time, I have thought about this a lot, and I don't have definitive final conclusions, but I want to offer some more thoughts about this. Because one thing I started to notice is after first going through a loss of evangelical faith when I was about 20 years old, and then burning out of my career and seeing the similarities in how I felt between those two, I started to notice something similar in most alternatives as well. So let me see if I can try to explain this. In both systems, some of the things I noticed when I left were this, frankly, like a really profound sense of shame after I left, that there was something wrong with me that I couldn't fit into this belief system, this framework of the world, that I couldn't like make it work. And I also started to notice a lot of the way that these systems of belief are communicated and transferred through language. And a lot of what I think is at the core of both of them is a severance from our own sovereignty and wisdom, a sense that there is an external system that you must look at the world through. It is a frame. It's like, glasses that you put on. But is that entirely it? I think this is me first of all, this is me trying to articulate this in real time. And it's been very hard for me to articulate. First, because I felt a lot of fear and shame in trying to articulate it, and I'm a lot better placed with that now. But second, because I don't feel like I have the words yet to articulate this. Because a lot of the words that I have would still be going back into the thing that I'm trying to point out. Like, what I mean is, when you have a worldview that has some totalitizing element to it, which I think pretty much all worldviews currently do, or at least maybe not all, but most of the dominant ones in Western society, there is like assumptions that you cannot see, that like are invisible to you. And I think that's probably the common thing of what I noticed when I stepped outside of these systems is there's this self-referential, like internal logic of a system that makes sense when you're in it. And then when something pushes you outside of it, you turn around and you look at it and you cannot put it back together. Like something has fundamentally shifted. And you also realize that this thing was like present all along, but from your vantage point, you couldn't see it. So like with evangelicalism, I'd been taught growing up about the like infallibility of the Bible. When you kind of loosen that premise, when you step outside of that, you see that like so much of like its system is self-referential and self-fulfilling, and that you have to take the condition that the Bible is infallible to then believe its proof. Like it tells you it's infallible, but nothing outside of it tells you that. And in capitalism, I think there's a couple of assumptions that I honestly think go a lot deeper in us, even if we don't like the extractive money orientation of capitalism, than many of us can see. I think a lot of it is like this linear redemptive horizon, that like the future, like I'm going to be so honest that this is a point before that I would have shut down because I'd have felt frustration and shame that I couldn't explain this as well as I can, or as well as I want to. but just have to keep going. I have to try to do this. Like, I think these are important things to articulate. I'm trying to find the words to articulate them. But I started to, like, when I first kind of noticed the parallels, first of all, I felt really angry. I mean, I'd lost a lot. I'd burned out of my career. I felt financially precarious. I, to this day, 18 months later, am still dealing with a lot of like shame and fear because of the like deeply held beliefs I had about how to provide for myself and like financial responsibility. And I basically, I've made very little money in the past year and a half. And quite frankly, I will say, I think capitalism is a harder, sorry, I don't need to apologize. I'm just trying to I feel like I'm headed the wrong direction in how I'm talking about this right now. I think I need to move into, not that path wasn't, I don't need to explain all this, but I basically can feel that like the way that I'm expressing to this is not the way that feels like expansive than I want to. I basically think that there's something upstream of both of these, because I do see this same sort of, like, I almost articulate it more as this kind of like posture than anything else. And it feels like a little bit of a contortion and like a twist, like almost kinesthetically. I see this same sort of contortion in most alternative systems as well. And I mean, a lot of it is that I pretty much think any alternative is also based on this kind of sense that like we must share a framework and view of the world in order to move towards something different. That I need to convince you to see the world my way. My way of looking at the world is more correct, and I need to convince you to see it that way. I mean, I really do see a similar pattern in like modern spirituality spaces, in progressive spaces, and these are like those are places that are certainly more aligned with how I view the world. But I still see this kind of like, in those spaces, we are not actually relating to each other directly. We are relating through an abstract framework and idea. And that is how, like, there's an intermediation between us and how we perceive the world that I like. That's the thing, is I really question. I think the core thing that I question is I don't think we need meaning the way that we think we do. Like, it seems like we have this binary view of how to like kind of perceive and look at the world, as either have some sort of belief system that organizes us and like lets us like share things, or nihilism. And I'm at the point, and I mean, to be very clear, everything I'm saying is my own perception. And so I'm not claiming this is a certain objective universal truth. But the kind of point is anything that could possibly be objective truth cannot be is not the same thing as meaning. Anything that is objective eternal truth is inherently not meaning, and meaning is inherently not objective truth. Because anything that is meaning is something that we have turned into a story and put into words. And it is always a step removed from the reality of what is. So much of what we experience cannot actually be codified into words. And I think I I kind of wonder if one of the biggest, like, foundational frameworks that has become invisible to us is this sense that we like need meaning and shared meaning in particular. And even as I'm saying this, I recognize, like, I have my own like questions that come up about if we don't have shared meaning, like what's the basis for collaboration and connection? And in some senses, isn't the idea of not having meaning itself a meaning that I'm asking people to agree with? And those are like, yeah, those are legitimate limitations. And I don't have the answer to that. Honestly, it's just amazing to me that I've been able to say this much. I normally would have gotten so shut down with shame so much earlier. And I recognize that what I'm saying is incoherent. And I mean, part of what I'm trying to do is express my own perception, even when I can't make meaning out of it. And that in of itself is sort of the tension that every way of connecting to other people tends to be through like a framework right now. And I've sort of tried on different frameworks, but all of them feel a little bit limiting. If like burnout, existential crisis, those are all, or yeah, none of these kind of lenses that have what I've experienced that have gotten me to this point of perception feel like they capture the totality of my experience. I'm in myself just having a pretty profound experience. It's been so hard for me to get to the point of actually articulating this because of how, and again, I know I'm not doing it in a way that's probably making a ton of sense. Like, but it's so interesting to me how much I shamed and shut myself down from trying to articulate this for so long. I actually think, like, I'm curious if there is a possibility, okay, let me just slow down. I think one of the things I hear a lot is that, like, you know, the old stories of our world have collapsed. And I feel like I see a lot of people trying to come up with a new story to fill the gap. But you can't find the new story. You can't find the new story when it hasn't been written yet. And the fact of the matter is, I'm not even saying that there won't be a story moving forward. Because like maybe that is the way that we like organize our collective. But I think we can maybe come to a place where we recognize that the story itself I don't know. I'm getting a little stuck now. And that's okay. Like this is all something I very much lived. I have really felt like I wanted to share my own story, and I have seen like how I keep preemptively trying to guess the progression of my story, and what is actually happening continues to surprise me and does not fit the narrative that I have anticipated. And I think that is where we are at as a collective, that trying to tell the story now is premature. Like that's the thing, is like even what I'm saying now about we don't need stories, I don't think that's a universal story in and of itself, but I think it might be the thing that we need to tolerate in the interim, is that you see so many people trying to craft a new narrative of what is happening now and what is going to happen. And a lot of that just feels like, for lack of a better term, pretty manipulative to me. not intentionally necessarily. I'm starting to feel scattered, which suggests that this is probably all to say for now. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying to articulate this. Um, I mean, I think what I ultimately want to do is just like share some of the way that I perceive the world, what I've come to see. And I've also trying to share like how I've come to see that, because I think that those two things are related, and like it's important to sort of acknowledge the context, because not everyone has the context I have. And so like their perception will be different. But I have come to like experience a perception that has really changed my experience of the world and my ability to tolerate uncertainty. And I don't think it's something that I can offer to you just to adopt for yourself, because that's the same thing that I'm trying to avoid. But what I'm trying to encourage is each of us individually to start to share our perception, because I'm just like, I'm curious what is possible because of the amount of ability we actually have to articulate and have our experience seen by other people in this current age. I'm curious what the world would be like if, instead of trying to come up with a new story that we all have to fall in line to, if we allow our individual expression more ability to come out in the world and to connect to one another through our actual individual experiences rather than through some shared framework. Yeah, and again, this is more like, I'm not saying this is morally right or wrong either. Like, I'm just saying I think this is like the useful thing to do at a time where I do not think we're going to come up with a shared narrative, at least anytime soon. I think what we need more than anything is to like be connected to ourselves and our own experiences and each other. And I also think whatever, like, yeah, I think probably another like story will come of some sort. Maybe, I don't know. That's the thing, is we look back and assume that what has happened is what is going to happen. But like, if you went back to our ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago, before they could speak, like they couldn't even comprehend what has happened to our society now. I'm definitely getting tangential, which is okay. But yeah, this is I don't even know what to call this. If I were to use a word to what I think is happening to me and what I think, like the one that I feel most comfortable with, it's like a undomestication. Okay, I'm going to keep trying. Thanks for watching.